it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So here it is. This is the photo that started it all, didn't it? The photo that Prince Andrew, or Andrew, though he's still got his title, he's Prince, he's got all his titles. He hasn't been stripped of any titles, he's just not going to use them anymore. That's not quite the same as being stripped of a title, is it? So it's all word salad, it's all double speak. Oh yeah, he's not the Duke of York anymore, he's still the Duke of York. He's just not going to use his title anymore. Anyway, this was the photo that started it all. Photo undoubtedly taken by Epstein. Who is the ghost of Christmas past? He's not going away, is he? He's just not going away. I think there's a lot of secrets going to come out. And you know what? This woman who unfortunately took her own life this year at 41 years of age. I mean, just so young. This woman, really, all her life she was abused one way or another by men. And, she was 17 when Randy Andy, as we used to know him then, took advantage of her because he was, encouraged to by Epstein. I don't know. We don't know the exact truth of what happened. But at the end of the day, at the time, Andrew, he did think he was the dog's gonads, didn't he? The dog's cojones, los cojones de perros, as we say in Spanish. He really did think that. He was entitled. He was like the spare. Now, Prince Harry and Meghan, they get so much sort of hatred. You think he hasn't done anything like this one did? Nothing like. I can hear people saying, oh, well, now Prince Andrew has been stripped of his titles, time for Prince Harry. First of all, Andrew hasn't been stripped of any titles. Second of all, Prince Harry, really all he did was fall in love with an American girl, get fed up of the palace and all the shite that goes on there. He hasn't sort of abused any teenage girls. Not that we know of anyway. So, just it's nothing like Harry and Meghan This is if Andrew was a normal person, he would be in prison now. But he's not, is he? He's entitled. He's favoured. He's being looked after by the royal family as much as they can give out these statements and say, oh, blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah. At the end of the day, he's not going to be cast out to live on a council. They're talking about him. Oh, he can't live in this mansion. He lives in a mansion on the Windsor estate. And they're talking about casting him out. They're not going to put him on a council estate in a 2-bedroom flat, are they? It's just not going to happen. So it just makes me angry the way they sort of make this out like to be, this terrible thing that's happened to him. I mean, don't get me wrong, he will be angry about it because Andrew is like a puffed up frog, isn't he, with his own self-importance. He won't like it that he can't use his titles anymore. But he's not really suffering. He hasn't got to worry about his electricity bill. Like if his car breaks down like mine did this morning, he hasn't got to worry about it, how he's going to get it fixed. So this is all like smoke and mirrors, really. Anyway, before I start, I'm going to give a little bit of waffle. For those of you who might have followed my channel, I've had a terrible morning. But I know I haven't had the worst morning. There'll be people out there that have had worse mornings. But literally, I've went and put petrol in my car, then went to the commercial centre, went on the toll road to the commercial centre. When I got to the toll to pay the toll, went to take my card out, no card. I'd left my card at the petrol station. So luckily, the nice guy on the toll road let me through without paying. I had to make my way back. go back to the petrol station, got my card, thought, oh, brilliant, get in my car won't start. So I had to phone a grua, which is a pickup truck, or in Spanish, or what, I don't even know what you call it in English. Wait an hour for them to come, bring the car back, and God knows how I'm going to get it fixed. I have no idea. So I just put petrol in as well. So I've got a tank of petrol and I can't use the car. Oh, anyway. And then there's been one thing after another. Then the cooker's not working again. There's definitely something going on, some satanic influence going on. Because I made some videos about paranormal for the members, and they're ready to release, to just generally, but I haven't released them yet. They're on unlisted or private. I just don't know whether to do it or not, because I feel like I'm inviting in evil spirits. Anyway, as I say, so a lot worse things can happen in life than your car breaking down and blah, 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 blah. But the point I'm trying to make is, Andrew, if his car broke down, he wouldn't have to worry, would he? He wouldn't have to worry about paying his bills or, putting his petrol in. And whatever they say, whatever happens, he's never going to have to worry about all those things. So I've got a limited sympathy for him. I do feel that he looks haunted, but he's not the only one. And what we're going to be looking at in this video is not only Prince Andrew and how haunted he looks, and obviously it's, getting to him, but he should have just told the truth, shouldn't he? If he would have told the truth from the get-go, people might have more sympathy towards him. It's hard to find sympathy for people who lie, isn't it? Who completely lie. He's lying about everything. And, poor Virginia, who took her own life at 41 years old, because she just really, I think Virginia, she was abused all her life, not only by Andrew, used by Epstein and Maxwell and all that, and she just couldn't cope with life. That's how I feel about Ghislaine, and I think a lot of people probably understand that. To get to 41 and she was doing so well, with sort of fighting this whole thing, and she was such a good voice for other victims. But unfortunately, that's just the way it is. She couldn't do it anymore, and I feel for her. Anyway, her brother says he feels that she'll be looking down, participating in this. I hope so. She did so much for people. So where are we going to start with this? Because where does it start? It all started with this photo, really, didn't it? And I think Epstein took this photo deliberately, because Epstein, to me, this is just my opinion, but you probably agree with me, and I think it's backed up. He's a blackmailer. He was blackmailing Sarah Ferguson and his wife, or estranged wife, but they seem to be living together now. He's a blackmailer. He made sure there'll be videos, 100%. There will be videos of Prince Andrew, other people, I don't know who, but there will be. There's so much more to come out about this, but whether it ever will or not, I don't know. And it's this man. He's at the bottom of it. He referred to Andrew as a useful idiot, didn't he? It was great having Andrew under his sort of spell, because he's royal family. That gave him kudos, didn't it? They loved it. All that with oh God, imagine getting a prince involved in it all. How fabulous. But what we can't forget either, I think, this is it. Look at this. Charlie boy, he's not much more than a PDF, really, is he? You think of how he was 30, I think, when he married Diana. She was a teenager. What's the difference? And he only married her to give him sons. He never loved her. He loved Shamila. So to me, there's no difference between these brothers. And Charles might be trying to sort of dissociate himself now from Andy, but I don't think he'll be able to. And this week he's going to the Vatican to pray with the Pope, for fuck's sake. Come on, to pray with the Pope. Ooh. Anyway, the recent royal funeral that Shamila didn't attend, did she? But William went, and William looked embarrassed to be speaking to Andrew. We're going to look at that. We're going to talk quite a lot about William. I can't make my mind up about William because personally I don't understand how William could even have anything to do with Charles, really, after what he did to his mother. And I think this is part of the problem with Harry, isn't it? That family, they're so toxic, it's untrue, but they've got loads of money, so it's like, oh God, they can turn around and say, oh, they work really hard and they do this and everything's under public scrutiny. No, it isn't. They've got private life most of the time. What they're doing now, do you know what they're doing now at this moment? No, we don't know. We only get to know what we are allowed to know. And I can't decide about William, but he's done 2 interviews recently that have, we're going to look at the interviews that William did as well. He's done an impromptu interview with someone that was not, it's not been organised by the palace for once. He's also did another interview with a lady who very sadly not only lost her child, but then her husband, the father of that child, he couldn't cope with the loss of the child. And then he deleted himself. And this woman has had to cope with it. And William goes along to interview her. And William gets more upset than her, I think. She ends up supporting him. I worry about William. I think, what is it? Because he keeps everything what's the word? Everything sort of keeps everything as if, he's going to be king one day. So he can't show his true feelings. But I feel like lately he has shown his true feelings more. And to be honest, that makes me like him more. And he's said in these interviews that he's going to change things, he's going to modernise the royal family. I hope so. Because really all people want to see is that people are human, don't they? Charlie Boy, forget it. Shamila, forget it as far as I'm concerned. She's like ding dong, isn't she? The witch. Hubble bubble, toil and trouble. She stirs most of the problems with Harry, in my opinion. Anyway, so we've got a lot to talk about. So please don't forget to like and subscribe if you like it, and if you want to subscribe. If you don't like it, you might not like my opinions. You might be a royalist. You might think the royal family are the best thing since sliced bread. Well, that's fine as well. But you know what? There's a million channels out there that love the royal family. You're not watching one at the moment. But I will be fair. And I will be fair about William, about Randy Andy. I'll be fair, and I'll give you my opinion. That doesn't mean to say you have to agree with it. That's up to you. So, hi, lovely lurkers. Thank you for watching. Hi, replay crew. Thank you for watching. Let's see who's in the chat. I mean, these sort of things always cause a lot of comments, and yeah, everyone's entitled. You're all entitled to your views. Just don't be disrespectful to me or any of the other chatters. Hi, Nigel. Yeah, I agree. No way that Prince Andrew would willingly relinquish his titles. But don't forget, he hasn't relinquished them. He's not going to use them, but he's still got them. And I agree. There's more revelations coming out. I don't think this is the end. They're trying to make it the end. They're trying to make it like this is the end of it. But it's not the end of it, is it? Yeah, and then Donald Trump, David, he's another one. What's going on over there? I mean, it's ridiculous. No sound. Oh, you can hear me now. Yeah, a lot of people will stick up for Andrew. but not me. So, how could you stick up for him? It's like, what sort of person are you if you stick up for Andrew above? Because do you know what? Virginia was not his only victim. There's a lot of victims out there. How could you stick up for him? Anyway, first thing I want to do is show you now what we have to remember, because I bet there's a lot of younger people seeing all this thing about Prince Andrew and they just see, Uncle Nobed. Andrew is the Uncle Nobed of the royal family, isn't he? If you've ever watched Peter Kay, every family has an Uncle Nobed who turns up at weddings, tries to dance with all the young girls and, put his arm around them and what have you. That's him, isn't it? Andrew is the Uncle Nobed of the royal family. But what we need to remember as well, and I do think it's important, is that he wasn't always Uncle Nobed. He was once I'm old enough to remember when Andrew was like the darling of the royal family. He was like, the handsome one. Let's have a look. I'm going to show you. Just in case you don't remember, some of you will remember, a lot of you might not remember. But we used to call him Randy Andy. He was good looking. He was the spare, so he didn't have to behave. He had lots of affairs. Well, they weren't affairs then because he wasn't married. And his most famous relationship probably was the Party Prince, he was called, Randy Andy. And his most famous relationship probably was with Koo Stark, who was a soft porn actress, this lady here. Now, a lot of you will remember that, a lot of you won't remember that, but you can see he was a good-looking guy. And, of course, we did not know much then. These are times where we didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. Andy was, what's the word? He was a good-looking member of the royal family that everyone looked on as, handsome guy. He was having great fun. He looked handsome in his uniform. And he had this notorious relationship with Koo Stark, who was a soft porn actress. But obviously he was never going to marry her, was he? But he ended up marrying Sarah Ferguson, who wasn't much further from a soft porn actress, really. Though, having said that, I do remember when they got married, I quite liked Sarah Ferguson because she seemed like more natural than most of the royal family, but of course we didn't know then just how greedy she was, but they will do anything for money. Anything. If there's money involved, they'll do it. And it doesn't matter how much money they've got, they want more. They are absolutely, bad people. Hi, Mike. Hi, Angel. Just making sure I haven't missed it. Hi, Lily. Now, funny you should say that, David, because I've got a photo here prepared. What people should remember as well. Lord Mountbatten. So this is Andrew when he was young with Lord Mountbatten, who was a notorious pederast or whatever they call it. He liked the young boys, didn't he? And he's one of Charles, Charlie Boy loves him. When he died, when he was blown up, he had little boys on his yacht, didn't he? Or ship or whatever you call it. This man is a notorious PDF as well. So, it runs right. These roots run deep in the royal family, very deep. And the other thing I wanted to show you as well, before we get into this, is we can't forget Charlie Boy's connection and the whole royal family's connection with Jimmy Savile. It's never mentioned now, is it? But we can see from all these photos, they were bosom buddies. You know, Charlie Boy laughing away at what Jimmy's got to say. Of course, he was Sir Jimmy. You know, everybody loved him. Why don't people look up at what's going, you know, just amazes me sometimes. Every day you see in the news people outraged. Oh, I put my bloody Union Jack flag up and someone told me to, you know, people whinging that they put their Union Jack flag up or their St. George flag up. Everybody whinging about that. Why is people not whinging about this? These are the important things. These people, they are taking your tax money, not the benefit people or whatever. It's just a drop in the ocean. These are the people that you're paying for. You're paying for Andrew. Who do you think is paying for Andrew to live in a 32-room mansion on Windsor Estate? Who do you think is paying for that? Anyway, never mind. Sometimes you just can't get through to people. But this is it. Charles, who married Diana when she was just a teenager herself and he was a 30-year-old man. He never loved her. He just married her to have children with her. And he always loved Shamilla. And now he's with Shamilla, who causes all the trouble between the royal family, the British press, Harry, Meghan, etc. You know, honestly, sometimes I just think, well, if you can't see that as clear as day, then it's pointless me trying to point it out to people. So we mustn't forget that. We must not forget the royal family's connection to probably one of the worst paedophiles ever. So where are we going now? Let's have a look at the statement that he's issued. So he's come out with this statement as of yesterday. Obviously, or it seems to me obviously, it's not him who's made this decision. There's no way that Prince Andrew would make this decision on his own. This is a statement that came out last night, Friday evening, on the 17th of October. In discussion with the King and my immediate and wider family, we have concluded the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. I have decided, as I always have, of course he always has, to put my duty to my family and country first. I stand by my decision 5 years ago to stand back from public life. And you know what I think has precipitated this as well? He turned up at that funeral the other day that we're going to have a look at. And it was embarrassing. He was trying to talk to Prince William. William realised that the cameras were on him. And I believe that William would talk to him normally on a normal day. And then William sort of touched his nose, coughed. He probably turned to Andrew and said, oh, you know, the cameras are on us. And then why was Andrew there in the front line? He's never stepped back, not properly, and the family still treat him the same, but not from now. But I think it's too late. I think the damage has been done. They can put Andrew as far back as possible as they want. But I think the fact that it's taken them so long to do it, I think it's too late. I don't know what's going to happen. Anyway, we have concluded the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. I have decided, as I always have, to put my duty to my family and country first. Honestly, God, it's hilarious. He never puts his duty to anyone first. He puts himself first. He always has. I stand by my decision 5 years ago to stand back from public life, which he hasn't properly. With His Majesty's agreement, we feel I must now go a step further. Now, note this carefully. I will not, therefore, no longer use my title or the honours which have been conferred on me. He's not rejecting them. He's not been stripped of them. He's just not going to use them. That is very different, isn't it? As I have said previously, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. And that's the other thing. If Andrew would have had any sense, what he should have said from the beginning was, I did not know that Virginia was only 17. He should have admitted that he met her. What happened? I mean, maybe he felt like he couldn't because he thought then he would get charged. But, all these lies, they haven't helped with his public persona, have they? Surely people would have responded better to him if he would have apologised. And the way he said, oh, no, I don't know her. I've never met that woman. For fuck's sake, Andy. We all know that you did meet her. You did have sex with her. Just own up to it and say it was a terrible mistake, or you didn't realise how old she was. Anything. Tell the truth. Or you didn't give a shit, which is probably more like the truth, that you didn't care. She was just a young girl. So, of course, he can deny the accusations all he likes, but everybody knows that the accusations are true. And this sort of, and then, of course, it's turned out since that car crash interview that he did with Emily Maitlis, it's now turned out that he was in contact with Epstein after that. And after he told Emily clearly that he wasn't in contact. He was. And now this leaked email, and it makes you wonder, who's leaked the email? I wonder. Who do you think? Let me know who you think is. Somebody has leaked these emails. Who is it, I wonder? Do you think it's Camilla? Somebody has leaked them. They haven't just come out of nowhere. So I'm just wondering who has leaked them. Because Epstein is dead now, so it can't be him. Unless it's something to do with him, I don't know. But suddenly these leaked emails, so it just makes you wonder who's leaked them. Anyway, which make it clear that he was in contact with Jeffrey. And in fact, he said, we are in this together. What was the other thing he said? Oh, we will play soon. We'll play again soon. I mean, they're so compromising, the emails. You just, they're disgusting, really. So it shows clearly the close relationship he had with Jeffrey, even after Jeffrey had been convicted as a PDF. So everything he even said, we knew it was lies that he told Emily, but now we know for certain, don't we? I mean, he's such a fool. He really is a fool. I mean, I do worry about him. I think he may do something to himself. I really do think he may do something to himself. I just have that feeling because, well, anyway, him and Sarah Ferguson, they're like that again, aren't they? They're living together. I mean, maybe not like as a couple, I don't know. And then he's got his daughters, Eugenie and Beatrice, is it? And some people feel sorry for them. I do feel sorry for them. But then other people say no, because they knew all these times that he's tried to make money, or that Sarah's tried to make money. Beatrice and Eugenie have known about it. They're all like pigs in the trough, aren't they? It's like, oh, God, what money can we make out of everything? As if they haven't got enough money. Do you know what I mean? For some people, don't matter how much money you've got, it's never enough, is it? But anyway. Just crazy. The whole thing is crazy. Now, what's the other next thing I want to show you? Yeah, so let's not forget, and I'm going to repeat this many times, he has not been stripped of his titles. He has decided or been made to stop using them. That's not the same as being stripped, is it? He's not been stripped of them, you know. And of course he remains, let me show you this, he remains as a prince because the title of prince was his from birth, because he is the son of Queen Elizabeth II. Who, of course, he was her favourite son, wasn't he? I mean, he must be going mad now without mummy to bail him out of everything. I mean, you know, much as respect that I have for Queen Elizabeth II, you know, she did bail him out of things. She did condone him being a PDF. Really, she condoned it. She didn't, you know, I don't know, she didn't stand up and say, oh, well, what he did was wrong, but he's my son, blah, de, blah, de, blah. So it says the titles that he will lose were given to him later in life. He has not lost them. Oh, I cannot say this enough. He has not lost any title. He's just going to stop using them. So he's dressing it up as if it was his decision, when really it would have been made by the palace. Oh, and then, of course, he was an alleged Chinese spy. That's a whole nother thing. At the end of I don't think that Andrew is a Chinese spy. But his association with the Chinese spy, because Andrew would do anything for money. So if Putin turned around tomorrow and said to him, oh, here you go, I'll give you a couple of million if you'll say a few good things about Russia, he would do it. Of course he would. He would do anything for money. He's greedy. So we'll see. He's trying to make it look as if it was his decision. It wasn't his decision. He is still 8th in line to the throne. And he's still theoretically a council of state, who are the stand-ins for the king if he's overseas or unwell. But this is the first time a duke has lost a title in more than a century. So it is quite historic. But again, I think it's important to say he hasn't lost the title, has he? It wasn't taken away from him. You know, we've got to... He's just not going to use it. Anyway, he's relinquishing all of his remaining titles, including the Duke of York and the Earl of Inverness and the Baron of Killyleagh. But as I say, he's relinquishing them, but they're not being taken from him. Let's have a look at this. So it was just that this was a straightforward shooting weekend. Well, we all know what they are, don't we? We all have one at least a couple of times a year, just a straightforward shooting weekend. Oh, somebody was saying that he might have lost the right to go shooting on the estate. Oh my God, I'm heartbroken for him. Oh my God, get the violins out. Poor Andrew won't be able to go on any more shooting weekends, maybe.
For the record, is there any way you...
Now, the other thing we have to remember, he's never condemned Epstein, really, or Ghislaine. He's never said, oh, it's terrible what they were doing, or blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah. He's just oblivious to the pain and the abuse that those... Oh, you pompous
So you're absolutely
shit.
sure that you're at home on the 10th of March? Yeah.
He's such a pompous... Oh, so he remembers going to Pizza Express because that's a very unusual thing for him to do. But he doesn't remember having sex with a 17-year-old girl, because that obviously isn't an unusual thing for him to do. Honestly, the other thing about Andrew is he's so thick, because I think Andrew is living back in the past when people did accept anything, the royal, you know, whatever the royal family would do. Nobody looked too deeply in what was going on with the royal family. It was just like people just accepted, you know, they were their betters and all that shite. Nowadays, people know that the royal family is, you know, just, it's like in the past. Do you know what I mean? The British royal family, there are royal families in different countries. Think where I live in Spain, you've got the monarchy, but they're so different from this monarchy. You know, they're just like, they're so privileged, so entitled, and Andrew's a prime example of it. And he's living in the past when it used to be like that. Oh, he's probably living in the past, probably looks at his newspaper articles every day of when he was like the party prince and, you know, Randy Andy and everyone. He was like the heartthrob of the royal family. I'm sure he's living in that even now. He can't believe, I do think with Andrew, he cannot believe that anyone's questioning him because he's living in the past. And I hope that William, you know, and Harry, I mean, Harry already is completely different, isn't it, from any other member of the royal family. But I hope that William will do that. So we're going to watch some interviews with William in a moment where he's saying things are going to change when he becomes king. I bloody hope so. I wonder if William's got some things in his head that will surprise us all. Well, if I ever get to see him be king, I could be gone by then. So, of course, he didn't sweat at the time, did he? He had a slight problem with that because he didn't sweat at the time. Well, do you know what? If you believe that, I've got some tartan paint. How much do you...
Therefore,
sorry.
if...
How much do you think he rehearsed that, thought about that before? Yes, it's a positive action, so you would remember it. Now, he doesn't remember that, but he does remember going to Pizza Express.
You try to forget. It's very difficult to try and forget positive action. And I do not sweat at the
He didn't sweat at the time. He obviously sweats now. He's trying to think. There's loads of photos around of him sweating, so it's all a load of shite. Anyway, we know it's shite, but anyway. So, from what the royal commentators say, I mean, the thing is, there's a lot of people are trying to distinguish between Andrew and the rest of the royal family, aren't they? It's like, oh yeah, the royal family's great, it's just Andrew. Oh, and Harry, of course. You know, the royal family is completely outdated now. You know, remember that Charlie Boy, when he got his coronation, he had all these gold carriage made, gold thrones made. And then in the king's speech that he did, he told us all to live a simple life. You know, I just don't know how people can't see it. You know, look up at what these people are doing. And the other thing is, you know, Charlie Boy, all this, oh yeah, he's all for saving the planet and all this kind of thing. But he was like that with Trump, wasn't he, at that dinner party? You know, and Trump is, you know, drill, baby, drill. And there was Charles making a big fuss of Trump. You know, they're not honest to what they say. You know, yeah, he believes in protecting the environment as long as it doesn't affect his lifestyle. He's still jetting off all over the world, isn't he? But, you know, as long as it doesn't affect his lifestyle, we've all got to think about it and protect the planet. But he doesn't have to because he's the king. He can do what the fuck he wants. Anyway, now we saw, what's this? Let's have a look at this little video.
I guess if his titles are meaningful in terms of he's held in high regard by society, then I guess if his behaviour hasn't actually been commensurate with, if you like, the status or regard with which society regards him, then it's only right that he should give up his titles and actually say, well, I'm not actually holding my behaviour, if you like, to that high standard.
I think it's an unfortunate turn of events. You know, it's like you live and die by who you flock with sometimes in life. That's in life, no matter who you are, whether it's rich or poor.
I think Prince Andrew has probably done what he knew he ought to do after all the disasters that have become clear over the last few months and years.
Well, he hasn't actually done anything. He's just said he's not going to use his titles, but he's still got his titles. So anyway, Now, Virginia Giuffre's brother was on Newsnight, and I watched the interview. This is her brother. It was very emotional. And he said that the family has mixed emotions after the announcement today. We've shed a lot of happy and sad tears today. Happy because in a lot of ways this vindicates Virginia, he said, describing her as a truth teller. I think this is a moment when we feel very proud for her, but we're also sad because she should be sitting here, he says with emotion in his voice. All the years of work that she put in is now coming to some sort of justice. I think there's a lot more to come out here. I'm sorry that Virginia could not be here. You know, she just gave up for whatever reason. It's so sad. You know, if she did take her own life, I mean, there's always a lot of suicides around the royal family. You might have noticed that. Whenever anybody gets too difficult, something seems to happen to them. It's funny, really, isn't it? You know, you should worry, really. You say anything against the royal family, you should bloody panic. So, of course, Epstein, you know, they say, I believe that Jeffrey did kill himself, because for someone like Jeffrey, prison would be, after the life he'd had, the freedom he'd had, wouldn't prison be very difficult for him? But who knows? I don't think we'll ever know the truth, to be honest. Her sister-in-law, Virginia's sister-in-law, says this is only the beginning of what is to come, and that the family will be relentless. So at the end of the day, if the royal family think this is the end of it, it's not. She says the story is far bigger than the US. The Department of Justice have only released 1% of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, and the country holds the key to bring down all the enablers and co-conspirators of Epstein's crimes, and we will not stop until it happens, she says. Well, they want to worry as well, because, as I say, people seem to die around this. And then Virginia's brother is asked if he's had any contact from Prince Andrew, the palace, or the king. And he said, I would welcome any contact, but he hasn't had any. So, yeah. And he said, we would call on the king to potentially go ahead and take out the prince in the Andrew. Now, I don't think he can do that. I think that's the one thing he can't do. Can't strip him of the title prince, because that's his title by virtue of being the son of Queen Elizabeth. So that might be impossible. But all the other titles that they keep saying he's been stripped of, that he hasn't been stripped of, he's just said he's not going to use anymore, they could be taken away from him. And he says that his sister would be very proud of what's happened. Oh, and then they had another survivor on, Hayley Robson. And she said that today's delivered a little bit of accountability, but that Virginia Giuffre should be here. So that's basically what has happened there as far as Andrew's concerned. So I'm going to put some windows down, and then I want to talk about William. What do we think about William? You know, I personally haven't really liked him that much, to be honest, but he's done a couple of interviews recently. I don't know about Will. I worry about William because he doesn't look very happy. So let's have a look at the funeral. Recently, the Duchess of Kent's funeral, that Andrew was right there in full, you know, he wasn't at the back. Do you know what I mean? He was right there in full view, chatting to everybody, shaking the hands of the bloody bishops or whoever it was that were officiating. I mean, that's terrible, isn't it? Imagine an actual PDF turning up at a church like that and shaking the hands of bishops. and them smiling and I think it's disgusting that he was welcome there. Anyway, this sort of went viral, which is, look, he's standing next to William and he starts making a joke, like you do at funerals, with William. Yeah, whatever he said, he thinks it's hilarious. William doesn't know what to say because William knows that he's being filmed. So William's like, oh, for fuck's sake, why was I born into this family? That's how he looks to me. He's like, look, Andrew. Now, for him to feel comfortable enough, though, to make that joke with William in full view of everyone, you think that behind the scenes, really, there's no problem between them. And William is angry only because he knows that they're being filmed. So watch this. So William goes to touch his nose and he probably whispers to him, "We're being filmed," or "Shut up, Uncle Knobhead," or "For fuck's sake, don't you know we're being filmed?" I don't know what he actually says there, but he wipes his nose. He definitely whispers something because Andrew was laughing. And now Andrew, he sort of like goes all serious. What an embarrassment. William just looks like he wishes the earth would open up and swallow him up. But as I say, for Andrew to feel that comfortable about making a joke with him there, I think, behind the cameras and that, they'll probably get on really well. Williams. Now Andrew doesn't know what to do. Now, do you know, it's funny with Andrew, and this is just a total sort of off-the-wall comment, but he looks nothing like the others, does he? Doesn't look like Anne, he doesn't look like Charles. Do you think the Queen sort of had a little fling with someone? Because he was her favourite as well, but why is he so short and all the others are so tall? It just doesn't have that same look about him, does he? Is he like a cuckoo in the nest? Probably. Yeah, so all these bishops and what have you, as Andrew arrived, they all shook his hand, smiled at him, a paedophile. You know what I mean? It's like, what? They just didn't seem to, hi. Why was he there with such high profile when this was only a couple of weeks ago? Yeah, so William starts talking to someone else. He's trying to put as much distance as possible there. And Andrew now trying to look serious, but he's forgotten he's just had a little laugh and a joke there with William at a funeral. He's so thick. Andrew is so thick. He's a complete thicker. He has got no self-monitoring whatsoever. His best bet would have been to keep a low profile, wouldn't it? Let's just watch that again. Yes, yes. William's like, shut up, you fucking knob. He is a complete picture. He really is. So this is the creme de la creme. This is the British royal family. Like, people are watching this all over the world and thinking, oh my God, this is the best that Britain's got to offer. Now, Andrew does look sort of haunted, but you know what? He's brought it all on himself. Nobody's done it to him, he's done it to himself. Because he's a complete dicker. Shamila didn't turn up at this funeral. She was ill, wasn't she? But she turned up for Trump's. The next night was the party with Trump, big state banquet. She turned up for that, but of course Andrew wasn't allowed to go to that. And Kate is right down here. She's keeping as far away from Andrew as possible, I would imagine. I just think, is that it? Is that our, you know, people are looking at Britain and thinking, that's Britain? You know, that's the British royal family. That's the best that Britain's got to offer. Okay, I want to show now. So I was one thing I was impressed, and I'm not a royalist, as you may imagine, but I try and look at things from a fair perspective. I did think this interview that William did, a very impromptu interview. He did not go through the palace. He did this interview himself, and I do think he did come over as more of
son is proud of what we
sort of a human being.
In which my son is proud of what we do in a world and a job that actually does impact people's lives for the better.
You know, William always looks like he don't really want to be there. To me, he just always looks like that. And maybe he's just waiting till he's king, and maybe he will make sweeping changes. I don't know. I don't know what he thinks of Shamila. I think it's pretty clear what Harry thinks of Shamila, and I don't blame him. That was their mother that Shamila betrayed. Well, their own father betrayed Diana. You know, it must rankle. But, you know, William seems to have decided he's going to be king one day, and he's going to, he said in this interview with this guy, Eugene Levy, who I've never even heard of. So he went out of the normal sort of conventions, did this interview with this guy, Eugene, in a pub in Windsor. And he did come over as more of a sort of human being, because my problem with William is as well, him and Kate together, they never look like a proper couple, not like Meghan and Harry do. You know, you see Meghan and Harry, and whether you like Meghan or not, or whether you like Harry or not, they always seem like a couple. They're affectionate, they get annoyed with each other sometimes, you know, they're just like a normal couple. Whereas William and Kate, to me, always look very distant from each other. Not years ago they didn't, but now they do. But yeah, do you see how William, even here on the balcony there, not even with Andrew, he looks like he'd much rather be somewhere else, probably be in the pub with this Eugene.
It sounds like the monarchy will be shifting in a slightly different direction.
I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda. Change for good. And I embrace that and I enjoy that change. I don't fear it. That's the bit that excites me, is the idea of being able to bring some change. Not overly radical change, but changes that I think need to happen.
So he said he said not over radical change. I think they need radical change, to be honest. But yeah, tell me, what do you not think that William he doesn't look happy, does he? He doesn't, see now he's like the heir to the throne. You think he's not, he doesn't look happy. I know he's had a bad year and Kate's had cancer and it must have been all difficult and of course Charlie boy has had cancer. So it's been a difficult year. He lost his grandma, the Queen. She's been such a big loss, hasn't she? Not only to Britain as a whole, but a big loss to this family. She's probably like the steady thing that kept everything together. And since the Queen died, everything's gone to shit in Britain. It's like everything's disintegrated. She was like the last thing holding everything together. Even bloody anti-royalists like me liked the Queen or admired the Queen. William just looks like he really has got the world on his shoulders. I wonder if he thinks, God, I wish I was Harry and I could have gone to live in America. He looks like that, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think stuff to do with family overwhelms me quite a bit. Worry or stress around family side of things, that does overwhelm me quite a bit. But in terms of, doing the job and things like that, I don't feel too overwhelmed by that.
I don't know if any of you saw this interview, but I found it really interesting. I don't know why he chose this guy to have an interview. Oh, he turned up on a scooter. Apparently, he uses a scooter to get around Windsor because it's so big.
I was taken aback by how at ease he made me feel right from the first second we met. At the end.
So why did he choose this man to do an interview with? I've never even heard of him before. I think he's American, is he? But obviously William must have a lot of respect for him to trust him to do an interview with him.
End of the day, after that, the pub interview.
And I know that this was a complete surprise when this interview came out. All the royal commentators and what have you were like, "Oh my God!" Just came out of nowhere.
He had to leave to pick up his kids from school. They have family dinners together. They live in their house in Windsor. He seemed very down to earth. Now keep it up, of course, because height is better than a one.
And to tell you what, if he is down to earth, who's that's thanks to? It's not thanks to Charlie boy, is it? It's thanks to Diana, who wanted both her sons to be rooted in reality, didn't she? She used to take them out and show them homeless people and things like that. She wanted them to know that they lived a privileged life, but not everybody led that. I know, I'm always rattling on about Lady Diana or Princess Diana, but she was almost too nice, wasn't she? Was that why she was bumped off? Because she was a threat to the royal family, wasn't she? And she tried to do things differently. And if William is a person who wants to do things differently, and I hope he does, that's because of her. That's her influence. Now, he's obviously taken, he's the oldest son. He's going to be king. So he's obviously taken the opinion, right, I'm going to stick with this. And when I get to be king, I will change things. And some people do. Do you know, in Spain, after Franco, Franco was the dictator in Spain, and he prepared, if you like, or mentored King Juan Carlos, or as he was prince then, Prince Juan Carlos. And Franco always intended to bring back the monarchy. And when he died and King Juan Carlos became king, he then made democracy in Spain. He then declared it was going to be a constitutional monarchy. And it's because of King Juan Carlos, who is now in complete disgrace, in exile, because he ended up being corrupt. He's very elderly now. He's probably in his 80s now. And he cannot come back to Spain, because if he comes to Spain, he'll be arrested. And recently he did ask to be able to come back to Spain, but he was told in no uncertain terms if he came back to Spain, he would go to prison. And of course, King Juan Carlos is a relative of Queen Elizabeth, because he went to her funeral, and the Spanish people were up in arms because he turned up at her funeral. He was there in Europe, in Britain, and he wasn't arrested. And Spanish people were fuming, because they want him to go to prison because of the corruption. So he turned out to be a bad un in the end. But at the time when he became king, he was like the golden boy, complete. Everybody loved him. He'd brought democracy. He was handsome. He was, everything that people would want their king to be. And then, of course, he went down a different path, and now he's in disgrace. But yes, what I'm trying to say is sometimes monarchs, new monarchs, they can change things. Maybe William, I don't know what he'll do, but maybe he will bring modernisation. Maybe the first thing he'll do is get rid of Andrew. That would be good, wouldn't it? Anyway, so that was one interview he did. And then he did this other interview, which is very poignant. Let me find it. So he went to interview this lady, this poor woman, who unfortunately, her and her husband, they lost their child through a rare mystery illness. And then her husband felt so bad about it, he took his own life. So this poor woman, they've got another child. She's now a widow. She lost her child, and then she lost her husband. And William, in Mental Health Awareness Week or whatever it was, he went along to do an interview with her, and he gets very upset. I found it very emotional, because she ends up comforting him. And, she's the one that's lost her husband and her child, but he got really upset. So it obviously strikes a chord with him. Now, it's good to
Show
see that he's a human being.
So nice to see you.
This morning, the Prince of Wales showing raw emotion. Rhiannon Manning lost her 1-year-old son to a sudden and undiagnosed illness in 2012. Her husband, Paul, unable to cope with the loss, took his own life 5 days later.
It's really difficult to explain how grief feels. Emptiness, physical pain.
If you could say something, or wanted to say something to Paul, what would you have said?
There's only one thing I would ever say to him if I had time with him, and that would be, why didn't you speak to me? We would have been okay.
A devastating turn that left Prince William, who suffered loss himself with the death of his mother, Princess Diana, fighting back tears.
You okay?
I'm sorry, it's hard to ask you a question. I know.
She's saying to him, are you okay? This has struck a chord, hasn't it, with William? And I know he suffered loss, especially his mum, because he was young then, wasn't he? I mean, I know he's lost his grandma recently, but, at the end of the day, she was 90 something. That's more in the natural progression of things, isn't it? Losing his mum at that young age. But when I watched this interview, I got really upset, and I saw him, it was nice to see him showing emotion, because you know what, we're all just human beings. Doesn't matter if you're royal family, it doesn't matter how much money you've got. And I think Diana will have had that effect on him. Yeah, he got so upset, and so this poor lady, she's saying to him, "Are you okay?" Because it's upsetting. But that did make me wonder as well about his mental health, because of course, at the end of the day, he's the next king. And we know from Meghan, and like Meghan or not like Meghan, we know that the royal family don't give a shit about your mental health. We know from Diana they don't. It's just put up and shut up. That is the way it is if you're a member of the royal family. That is what you wouldn't want. The part of it that you wouldn't want. You're not supposed to show emotion. You just sort of get on with it, don't you? And if he is a sensitive soul, which he seems to be, that's quite difficult, isn't it? That's why Harry couldn't do it. That's why Meghan couldn't do it. That's why Diana couldn't do it. Because you've got to be almost like a robot, really, to be a member of the royal family. You don't really get, it's not it's not something, what's the word I'm looking for? You can't go off and you can't even talk to anyone really outside the royal family, because you don't know who you can trust. And you certainly can't trust anyone in the royal family. You certainly couldn't trust Shamilla. Do you imagine going to Shamilla and telling her your problems? She'd be right there. What Shamilla does, she releases everything to the Daily Mail, doesn't she? And then you get all this, vengeance against Harry and Meghan and what have you. Shamilla's behind a lot of it. She's a nasty woman. She is. And look at the way she treated Diana. But Charlie boy, he loves her for whatever reason. You can't help who you fall in love with. We've all fallen in love. Well, I certainly have fallen in love. Do you remember that song? Have you ever fallen in love with someone you shouldn't have fallen in love with? Oh, only about 300 times.
You've experienced loss yourself.
The raw emotion, just the latest example of Prince William's willingness to show vulnerability in public.
I'd say 2024 was the hardest year I've ever had.
The last coming over a pint with actor Eugene Levy, where the heir to the throne opened up about supporting both his wife, Catherine, and his father, King Charles, in their cancer journeys.
Trying to sort of balance protecting the children, Catherine. My father needs a bit of protection, but it's important my family feel protected and have the space to kind of process a lot of the stuff that's gone on last year.
And how his own children coped with their mother's.
Yeah, of course, this was like a propaganda thing that was released, wasn't it? You got to remember that, they do release things that they want you to think, oh, yeah, this is our lovely, happy family life. It probably, I'm sure their family life is just like everybody else's family life. Ups and downs, arguments, you name it, I'm sure that's it. And, you've got the two boys here, like the oldest one. Can't even remember what his name is. Is it Louis? He just seems to me, he's like, anyway, I shouldn't say it because I don't know. I won't get to know how they all turn out because I won't be here. But I hope I'm here to see how William gets on when he becomes king. And I hope he, will he make a good one? I hope he does, because I don't think Charlie Boy is a good one.
Cancer diagnosis.
And we're very open families, so we talk about, things that bother us and things that trouble us. But you never quite know the knock-on effects it can have.
And it's not just William who's talking about the hard subjects in public. Princess Kate also has a new essay out that she has co-authored with a professor from Harvard. In that essay, she's warning that screens are creating an epidemic of disconnection within families. So, guys, expect to hear more from these young royals and these young parents as they take on an increasingly prominent public role. Laura.
Well, they certainly have a platform. Braf, thank you. If you or someone you know is thinking about suicide, call or text 988 for the suicide.
Yeah, it did worry me a little bit because he got so upset about, you wonder, I hope his mental health is okay because, you know, it's not easy being, you know, the future king, is it? For your mental health and just don't know, you know, how does he sort of chill out? And well, you know, there's a lot of rumours about him, of course, that he's having affairs and that him and Kate aren't really a proper couple anymore. Are there rumours or is it true? I don't know. They never seem very comfortable around each other, that's for sure. But I don't know. But all I know is these last couple of interviews he's done have made me look on him more sort of favourably, if you like, because I thought, oh gosh, yeah, he comes over more human, you know, and maybe he is preparing to sort of change things a little bit when he finally becomes king. But let me know what you think. And as far as Andrew's concerned, I think we need to watch out for, there's a lot still coming down the line. Not only about Andrew, maybe about others. You know, what about Charlie Boy and Jimmy Savile and, you know, all these different sort of, you know, I mean, you've got to remember how young Diana was and how old Charles was. You know, we didn't realise at the time, but we're much more aware now, aren't we, of sort of age differences like that. And, you know, it's funny with age differences because as people get older, the age difference doesn't seem so bad, does it? So if you've got someone of 40 with someone of 30, doesn't seem as bad as sort of, well, you know, as someone of 25 with someone who's 15. As people get older, like a 10-year age gap these days in a lot of ways is nothing, is it? But it is when it's a big difference between, you know, a very young person and an older person. But if it's an older person and a not quite so much older person, it doesn't seem so bad. But it's strange, isn't it? Yep, maybe David. Well, certainly Andrew never got castigated, did he? Andrew, you know, he was just allowed to do whatever he wanted because he wasn't the heir to the throne either. So I think probably there was a lot more pressure on Charles. Well, you know, and that's well documented, isn't it? Charles wasn't happy, was he, when he was young? Whereas I think Andrew, when he was young, he was just off having a great time. You know, and he's supposedly the Queen's favourite. He was indulged because he wasn't the heir to the throne. And then, of course, is Edward. That he's not taught. You know, people forget about Edward and all the scandals around him. He's only just coming back into it a bit now, isn't he? But Edward, you know, people forget about Edward, don't they? But there was a lot of scandal around him. Anyway, I haven't got time to talk about that now. I've got to go because I'm going to go and watch Strictly Come Dancing. But anyway, thank you for watching. As always, let me know what you think about this, you know, latest debacle. Do you think, what do you think is going to happen to Prince Andrew or Andrew? But he's still a prince, so he's still Prince Andrew. He's still a duke. He just said he's not going to use that title. It's not been taken away from him. He's just said he's not going to. I think it's lip service, all this, personally. I don't think it'll make any difference. Apparently, he won't be at the Christmas festivities, or not the official Christmas festivities. You can bet 100% he'll be at the family Christmas party, but, you know, in the privacy of their home. He's not going to be not invited at Christmas, is he? But he won't be at the public. I mean, when you think about it, how has he even been at it for the last 5 years, really? Ever since all this came out, how has he been there? But yeah, as you say, nothing will happen to Andrew. He won't be waking up tomorrow morning like me and thinking, how the hell am I going to get this car sorted? He won't be thinking that. He doesn't have to think about that. It'd just be a phone call. Oh, my car's broke down. Can you come and fix it? You know, he's not, you know, and even if he gets thrown out of that great big mansion, in Windsor, he won't be going to live in a one-bedroom flat on a council estate in Manchester, will he? You know, he just won't be. So, you know, trying to make it as if, oh, poor Andrew, load of rubbish. Anyway, take care. I'll see you really soon in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, please. And until I see you again, may your God go with you. Bye.